There's a version of this conversation that starts with urgency, with get in now before it's too late, with FOMO and charts and price predictions. This isn't that conversation. What this episode is actually about is something quieter and more useful. It's about what it means to understand something early, before it becomes so obvious that everyone assumes you already knew, and why that window, right now, is still very much open. Not because of the price, not because of any particular moment in the market, but because of what Bitcoin actually is, what it's trying to do, and how little of the world has genuinely reckoned with that yet. Let's talk about timing, but let's talk about it clearly. Think about the internet in 1995. If you were paying attention in 1995, you could see that something was happening. You didn't need to know how the technology worked. You didn't need to be a programmer. You just needed to understand the idea that connecting everyone's computers together was going to change something fundamental about how information moved, how businesses worked, how people communicated. And if you understood that idea in 1995, not perfectly, not with certainty about exactly what would happen, but enough to take it seriously, you were early. Not early in the sense of gambling, early in the sense of paying attention before it was obvious. That's what early actually means. Not buy this before the price goes up. Not get in now or miss your chance forever. Early means understanding something before the rest of the world has caught up. Before it becomes background noise. Before people stop asking questions about it, because they feel embarrassed that they have to. Bitcoin has been running since 2009. That's 16 years. And the vast majority of people on Earth still don't understand what it is, how it works, or why it was built. That gap between what exists and what most people understand is the window. Not a window that closes tomorrow. Not a window that requires you to act right now or miss it forever. Just a window that exists, that you're currently looking through, and that will eventually close. The way the window on understanding the internet eventually closed, when it became so embedded in daily life that not understanding it became unusual. We're not there yet with Bitcoin, but we're moving in that direction, and understanding it now, before it's assumed knowledge, is the advantage. Let's be specific about what this episode is not saying. It's not saying buy Bitcoin now. It's not saying the price is about to go up. It's not saying you're running out of time. None of those things are part of this conversation. And if you encounter any of those arguments in the wild, they should make you more cautious, not less. FOMO, the fear of missing out, is about price. It's the feeling that something is going up, and you're not on it. It's an emotion, and it's one of the most reliable ways to make poor financial decisions. What we're talking about is completely different. We're talking about an idea, a technology, a shift in how money can work. Those things don't move on a daily chart. They move on a generational one. Nobody who understood the internet in 1995 was checking a daily ticker. They were watching something more fundamental unfold, a change in the infrastructure of how the world worked. And that kind of change doesn't happen in a day, or a week, or even a year. It happens over decades. Nobody knows where the Bitcoin price goes next week, next month, next year. Anyone who tells you they do is either wrong or lying. And either way, that's not a conversation worth having. The conversation worth having is this one. What is Bitcoin? Why does it exist? What problem is it solving? And what does it mean for money, your money, that something like this now exists? Those questions don't expire tomorrow, but they are worth asking now, before the world moves far enough along that you're always catching up. The word decentralized gets used a lot in this space, usually without being explained. So let's fix that. Centralized means one point of control. Your bank account is centralized. The bank controls it. Instagram is centralized. Meta controls it. The dollar is centralized. Governments and central banks control how much of it exists and what it's worth. Centralized systems are efficient. They're fast. They're familiar. But they have one significant weakness. If the thing at the center fails, is corrupted, or decides to act against your interests, there's no alternative. You're at the mercy of whoever holds the center. Decentralized means no single point of control, no headquarters, no CEO, no off switch. Bitcoin runs on thousands of computers around the world simultaneously. No single one of them owns it. No single one of them can shut it down. No government, no company, no individual can unilaterally change the rules or turn off the network. That's not an accident. It's the entire design. Bitcoin was built specifically to resist the kind of central control that made the 2008 financial crisis possible, where a small number of powerful institutions made decisions that affected everyone, with none of the accountability. Here's an interesting comparison. The internet was originally decentralized too. When it was built, nobody owned it. It was a shared infrastructure, a network of networks, belonging to everyone and controlled by no one. And that was genuinely revolutionary. But over time, centralization crept back in. A small number of companies built platforms on top of the open infrastructure, and those platforms became the internet for most people. 5 companies now control most of what you see, read, and interact with online. They can remove you, restrict you, or change the rules whenever it suits them. Bitcoin was built with that lesson already learned. Its decentralization isn't an accident. That later got undone. It's a design principle, written into the code, enforced by mathematics, protected by the distributed nature of the network itself. There's a version of early that looks like certainty. The confident person who saw it all coming, made the right call, and never doubted themselves for a moment. That's not what early actually looks like. That's hindsight dressed up as foresight. Real early looks like confusion, like asking questions that feel obvious, like not being sure how something works, and going to find out anyway, like being the person in the room who says, "Wait, can someone explain that again?" and meaning it. You don't need to understand all of it. You never will. Nobody does. The people who've been in this space for years are still learning. The technology is still developing. The regulatory landscape is still evolving. The full implications of a decentralized monetary system are still being worked out. What you need is a threshold of understanding, enough to know what it is, why it exists, and what decisions you want to make about it. Not certainty. Just enough clarity to act from understanding, rather than from confusion or fear. You don't need to be first. First is a lottery. First requires perfect timing, perfect information, and a fair amount of luck. First is for people who want to gamble on the outcome. What you need is to be informed. And informed is a decision, not a lottery. It's something you build, one episode at a time, one concept at a time, until you understand this well enough to make your own choices, with your own money, on your own timeline, for your own reasons. And the fact that you're here, asking these questions, building that understanding, means you're already making that decision. The window is open. You're already through it. Don't sleep on this. Not because the price is going to do something tomorrow. Not because you're running out of time. but because understanding what Bitcoin is, what it was built to do, what problem it solves, what it means that something like this now exists, is knowledge that will only become more relevant with time. Next episode, we get practical. Wallets. What they actually are, how they work, and how to set one up, without the jargon and without the fear. Bitcoin for Girls, the building of a beautiful future. See you next episode.